but from a kind of a positive lens. Because we met each other in a bar, randomly connected by a common friend who was a professor, and we discovered that we had a common interest to kind of shake up academia, and particularly the very traditional part of our alma mater university, which was University of Amsterdam. And we both were trying to do it in different ways, and this professor connected us, and then we started thinking, what should we do to disrupt it? And we came to this idea of a bootcamp, where we kind of put academics into a little space and we get them to move into action. And we talked about it for quite a while, I think, right? And then somehow COVID started. And then for us, that was a great opportunity to say, well, because starting a bootcamp in a physical space requires a lot of effort. You know, you need to find the space, you need to have the funding, and kind of like COVID made it so simple to start. Yeah, right? And we started actually with a meetup before we even go to the bootcamp. And then that meetup also taught us, I think, quite a lot about what does it mean to bring anthropologists together, which is a world in itself.
Yeah. Huh? And I think particularly applied anthropologists, you know, who don't like, I think for academic anthropologists to bring them together, there's a template.
Yeah.
It has a conference form, right?
Yeah.
But applied people, like they may work in this industry or that industry, so the template wasn't there, so we were experimenting a lot already in our meetup. What is a meaningful format for people to come and talk together in groups and to see what is possible and to learn from each other?
And you also see, very interestingly, how this world of anthropologists is literally a world of introverts, people that really like to do work by themselves. They like to sit in their research. It's not hard, it's not easy to bring them out of their shell and get them in conversation with each other. That is not a debate or like a conference format. So we also saw in that meetup how difficult it was. Like we were the uniting element every time, having to bring people together, get them to come. So it was quite an effort. That kind of social element of it, right?
Yeah. And then somehow, it was 2020,
summer,
and students couldn't travel, and everyone was bored.
You know?
COVID is weird, it was hectic but also boring. And so we just thought, let's just throw out the call and say, hey, do we have some volunteers who want to try out this new pilot bootcamp for free? And we thought it like before and after our regular job, so we do 8 to 9 in the morning, then we work from 9 to 5. And then 5 to 6 in the evening, they would tell us what they did today, like the researcher. That was our first one. And people were so bored that we got like in 1 hour we had enough people when we posted it because no one had anything to do.
And the interesting thing about our methodology that we create is like, okay, anthropologists, they are comfortable, but maybe not, they know how to write, they know how to think, they know how to talk about what they write. And then we thought, well, why don't we make them uncomfortable? Why don't we help them learn something new? Because in our meetup, a lot of them were struggling with the applied element, right? Like, how do I talk about my work in the world? How do I translate my anthropological knowledge in a way that brings me income? You know, like, because for them, anthropologist was like this tight box of academic writing articles, writing books. Then we said, okay, let's disrupt that, but we're not going to give you a lecture about that. We're going to get you to experience it. And as a result of that, you're going to get to have your own little project that you get to see that it's possible. And it's going to be in what is it, a week, right?
The first one was only 4 days.
4 days.
Because we didn't even incorporate design thinking yet.
So it was quite an iterative, but what I found very interesting is that from the first book, I could feel the opposite of the anthropological meetup. Like I could feel that people were very excited, and they entered spaces of collaboration so easily. Like we didn't have to draw them. It's like, yes, please talk to each other. You know, like it really so naturally happened, and it was so energetic. You know, I think that was very from the beginning. It had something, that methodology.
And those 4 first participants, afterwards, 2 registered as entrepreneurs. They were all like recent graduates from anthropology. They didn't know what to do. It was cool. They just graduated. Like, what do I do with my life? 2 registered as entrepreneur the week after. And the other 2 now
years later, I have 140 episodes. And so then I thought, when I saw Maria talking, I thought, oh, that would be so cool to get her on my podcast. Because this intersection of art and anthropology, I thought it was very interesting. So that's how we ended up in contact.
Yeah, you wrote to me then, like,
Yeah.
project organized, and then 1 year later, when I was searching for partners for the Creative Europe project, and I was actually a bit lost because I didn't really have connections in other countries. And this funding it's a co-grant, so you have to cooperate with 3 entities. And like I just by accident, I kind of saw my LinkedIn messages, and I thought there was a message there, and Corina was still one of the first ones. And I was like, oh, who knows me? Because at the time when I wrote, I was really busy, and it was all, and I reread her message and checked her profile, and I said, wow, we have a lot of common interest, and and I got back and I wrote and I said, I have a new idea for a new project, should we join?
And then we became rebellious because we said we want to put our bootcamps in the project. So we want to also make it with action. We're gonna not only have articles and stuff, but also have action. So
And that was really.
yeah.
And at first, I think I was, for the very first impact, I was like, I'm not sure, I don't really understand what is a bootcamp, but I had to process it a bit, but I was open from the beginning.
And the idea of action was always like, it's not like it's bringing artists and anthropologists in relation to each other, but in like a true partnership where they each get to bring themselves to the work and they introduce us. So a little bit what happens in the articles, but using a different format. And there's not one that is more powerful than the other, right? Because in the article you still get the anthropologist to give you the text, and then the artist puts their interpretation in it, but in the bootcamp they actually start as equal partners looking into the unknown and creating a narrative together.
And I think another thing that came together there is that we were ready to test our methodology in the real world. So in the beginning, our bootcamps were hypothetical situations that people were working on a problem and solving it. But with the beginning of AnthroArt, we said we're going to find NGOs who have an actual problem, an actual question, and put all these anthropologists and artists to work on that question. So we actually ended up doing 8 in this project, 4 in the first year, 4 in the second year, and then 1 in every country, and then online per year. Kind of follow that weird explanation. So in the first year, we did them about social inclusion because the articles were also about social inclusion, and we started in Romania with an NGO that helps people get work, and they had a question about people dropping out from the program. Then we went to Coimbra and we spoke with this NGO that has women's rights, and they work on online hate as well. They wrote us a question about online hate. I'll come on that. Online hate. And in Amsterdam, in their community center, who were asking how can we resolve this tension between we want to be a safe space for everyone, but sometimes we have aggressive people or people who didn't shower, and then other people feel uncomfortable. So how can we have a safe space and an open space at the same time, right? Like the community center always has that tension, and it remains there. You can never really resolve it. But we were looking for better solutions in that. And then in the online one, we had 6 teams that all chose a hypothetical scenario again. But it was cool because we brought people from Romania, Portugal, and Netherlands together in the online one, and they could work in intercultural teams. This year, we did 4 bootcamps on sustainability, the theme of this year. I actually was thinking we were going to talk about our articles first, so I'll just show you these are two of the illustrations that were made in the Dutch articles this year. And for us, I'm going to divert a second. What was really cool for us is, the first year we were really struggling. The Dutch space is a space where already there is so much going on. There's so much art, there's so much funding, there's so much things. And so we were new, we were like the new kid on the block, right? So we were writing everyone, and there was not happening a lot because people were like, big applied anthropologists, like the TEDx speakers and the people who make money selling applied anthropology conferences with cool talks, they came to us this year, which we were really happy about, because without them we are doing something right. Like we managed to establish ourselves in here, in the space, and of course it is still a relatively small part of the population, because just for comparison, like in the University of Amsterdam, they have 140 PhD candidates in anthropology, and then 40 professors. And that's just one university, and there's 5 others, right? So for us to really get the whole scene, we're going to work another 10 years, I think, before everyone has heard about us. But we are slowly growing and slowly moving forward, and we are finding this year that more people are willing to engage with us, because it's an established platform now. They're like, oh, all these articles, oh, that's what I wrote for you, okay, you know? So it has a bit of a snowball, and it needed some time, but it definitely seems to be working. And we have really cool articles, I mean, about like human-animal connections and feminism in the workplace, and just a lot of different angles that would also really push people to like just write what you wouldn't write in an academic thing. If you've been like, I met this one girl on the train, and I knew her already, and then we were sharing a train, and she was like, I've been thinking about how animals communicate. And I said, write for us, like do it. Why not? Write from an anthropological perspective.
I think maybe just to add to this, one of the things, because for us this was a completely new territory, right? Articles, and just like Maria was talking about the exhibition, that kind of stretches into a territory that we don't necessarily would have gone. It was the same for us with the articles. But what was, I think, interesting about that is when we started Namla, we were always like, if you compare us to the traditional Dutch academic sphere, we're very outliers, right? And our target has always been almost like the underrepresented voices in that academic space. And Rosalie talked about the 140 PhDs, but how much voice do they actually have for their work to be exposed to the world? Because it's an extremely stratified environment. So what we also saw that with this platform we amplified the voices of more outliers, you know, that were students sometimes, that sometimes didn't have the trust in themselves to say, oh, my work or my thoughts are worth publishing. Because this kind of extremely hierarchical world of Dutch academia makes them feel that they're not there yet, they're not worthy.
Yeah, and there are still, I had a conversation this week again, I'm teaching now the researcher bootcamp at the University of Amsterdam. And like, we have participants, but then the participants tell me that half of their supervisors don't like that they're taking part in our course. So there's still like a lot of academic resistance against applied anthropology. People think it's like less good or less cool or less honest or less scientific, whatever it may be. So the people who come to us are also still brave. Like they're still being rebels, which is kind of like, that makes me appreciate them, and they're also cool, and I like them a lot, and they should be our friends forever. But so it's very different since from Romania, but it was also really fun to explore. Like with this project degree allowed us to say, hey, we have this European funding, we have some opportunity, come explore with us, and it's cool to see how people are taking on that challenge. I brought a little poster from the sustainability boot camps. This was for the online one for this year. We also did one in March with Regeneration Cooperation in Amsterdam. They're super activists, so far out there that they are sometimes losing touch with the population they're trying to get on board. They want like the regenerative future, right? But they're so deep in the material that sometimes they use jargon that then I can't follow and most people can't follow. So they were trying to set up an education program, but they couldn't get people interested enough to actually join a one-year education program. So that's the question we looked into for them. Then in April we were in Lisbon with Bebush. I don't know if you know them, they're an NGO for the environment. And they were having trouble finding younger volunteers and members. So we looked into that, like what's happening there. And in May, we were in Bucharest, like Maria was saying, with the municipality about trash. How do we get people to change their habits around trash, which was very interesting. interesting as well, like a really fun question. And online, I mean, we also had some really cool projects that were done. I think we had 5 teams this year, maybe 4, and yeah, it was really cool. People came up with festivals and silent discos and all these really cool solutions that are making society better. They happen. And lastly, we did an exhibition. We did 2 exhibitions. Last year we had it in a hostel in Amsterdam, which was quite cool. The hostel has 600 or 800 beds.
Yeah.
So it's a huge building. And Amsterdam is so touristy that all these people come for 3 days and then they leave, right? And it was just an open space in the hostel. So the hostel is open 24/7 because people party in Amsterdam, so they're open all night. And it's also open to the neighborhood, and we made a really big effort to put a press release and to really invite neighborhood actors. And we work with local community centers and local libraries to really promote it also locally, so that on the one hand, the hostel public speaks English, right? So they have, I mean, not everyone, but they are not exclusively people who only speak Dutch, which a community center would have been. A lot of people speak Dutch as a second language, right? And they don't speak English as well. So the hostel public had English-speaking people in it, but we also really wanted to invite local people, and it was like a 10-minute walk from the university as well, because we also really wanted to promote it with Anthro people and stuff like that. We also tried to exhibit in the university. We're still waiting for our report, honestly, after 2 years, and we also tried to exhibit in the general public library in Amsterdam. We're also still waiting for the report. So we had to be a bit more creative. The Dutch case things get done very fine fast. It's something we learned during this project.
Yeah, and we do have a few partners in the university that are trying to help, right?
They are pushing, and it's
Yeah.
still not working, you know? So it's like, we have to be creative.
Yeah.
And this year, we did our second exhibition. That's, here you see the opening event poster. And I have a picture as well. We decided to, this is a community co-working space that has a loft on the upper floor that also gets used for a lot of events, and like the municipality rents it out for meetings or for like, you know, when they have like a strategy day out of the office, they rent this space, they have this comfy couch, they can really think about their strategy or whatever. And it also gets rented out, for example, for Amsterdam dance events and like just many things. And in the building they have a recording studio, they have a whole community of chefs providing food with Uber Eats and trying to build up businesses so they can eventually start a restaurant. And so it's a really creative space. And so, yeah, this was our, you know, like opening speech. We also combined it with having a conversation about the impact of applied anthropology in the context of why the world needs anthropologists.
Yeah, and particularly how do you engage with maybe more invisible groups? You know, anthropology prides itself for speaking for the people that don't have power to speak for themselves, but more often than not, we're not really at the real periphery. So still a lot of the topics that we touch are not as up there. So it was interesting how EASA had this, why the Women's Anthropology had this focus on including the voices of the periphery. So we had a short conversation about what is really the periphery, if you look at the Netherlands, for example. Yeah, and then how can you include them, and then create a small video that we submitted into EASA.
Yeah.
EASA. I don't know why I'm saying EASA, but it
is the daughter of EASA.
They're very connected.
They're all friends.
Yeah.
Friends. But yeah, and I was relating a lot to what you were saying, Maria, in the sense of like, for us with exhibition space, it was so hard to find because the art scene is so big, and we're like the odd kids in the art scene because we're trying to bring something academic in the art scene. And so we actually, for this space, we were searching for 6 months before. 6 months writing to galleries, asking them, like, obviously we didn't have a lot of money, so a lot of them were like, hey, rent us for like 300 euros a day. And we're like, that's amazing, thank you so much for the offer. but we were really searching for a space that was able to host this combination of academic and art, which was a huge learning curve for us both years. We learned so much from both exhibitions, and here you also see we had the posters that Maria had, and last year we had the boards also, because printing things in the Netherlands is way more expensive than sending things from Romania to the Netherlands and back. So yeah, we were creative and we made it work. But it also, I mean, to go back to your question from earlier, I mean, the amount of time and effort it takes to learn these things, like you don't properly budget for it, and we've spent a lot of time investing in our own learning, I think, which is okay because it has offered us so many opportunities. Yeah, and ultimately good results, I think. And lastly, I just wanted to show you a little video because at our exhibition at night, they put spots on it, and I just think it looks really gorgeous. So this is just like a little 20-second video. Anyway,
do you have any questions?
posters, lights, look nice. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Do you have questions? Comments? Tips? Life advice?
I mean, I think it's super interesting, as the same with the project in Romania. Also to see that there's such a beautiful picture of anthropology. But like I read the flyer that you said about the bootcamps itself. Like you use a certain template when you put them in one space, you divide them according to, like, is there a certain way that you take and choose topics, or like how do you approach it? Because it's like it's 12 days in a row. Like the idea is that at the end they always come out with a certain product with a digital illustrator, or that like
So that was a lot of questions in one question.
no, how do you
How does it work? How does it work?
How does
Oh, okay. So we do a week of rapid ethnography and rapid analysis, and then a week of design thinking and fiction.
Yeah.
When we do it online, when we do it offline, and we'll have whole days, and we're like physically in space, then we do it in 5 days. Yeah, that's the same process.
You can, on the website, on the AnthroArt website, you have the section action, and if you click there, you have storylines and the results of several bootcamps, and you can see the whole process described, what was the theme, the outputs on some of the bootcamps. We ask people to write reflection essays at the end, and they get published there. The artworks that emerge there also.
Yeah, but the main idea is that, the first half is about diving into the world of something. Yeah, really fast research. And in our case, in this project, it was diving into the problematic of the NGO, right? Trying to understand it, but moving very fast, because you just have like 3 sessions to do that. And that includes doing a mini ethnography where you go out there and you talk, but it also includes an analysis phase. And then you have a bridge to the world of making. So once you have your main insights, whatever those are in relation to the problem, then you bring in a design thinking facilitator that kind of takes them through an accelerated making sprint. So starting from that insight, you have to create something. And then that creation is an answer to the problem. And it can be a prototype that can take various shapes. The artist, then of course you can make it visual, you can make it more exciting, that prototype. And then they go out there and they test it with a few people. And then we also teach them how to string it all together into one story that they can then pitch to the NGO. And that is actually the last day. Okay, how do you put it all together? How do you tell the story of the problem, the solution, and what do you need to do further as an NGO? And that particularly strengthens their ability to sell themselves and anthropology, in addition. And then after that bootcamp I think in Romania, but also in Portugal, there were also produced some creative outputs. No, also in the Netherlands, creative outputs in the form of illustrations or even other like animation, no animation, like art.
We had like a sketch, like a theater skits, let's say. Two actors.
True.
And so many things.
And those were further. I mean, you can find them on the platform. We talk about the project, but that's kind of like the art, you know.
Yeah. I just wanted to show you this last because we've been talking a while and I think it's good for coffee. It's just 20 seconds. That's it. Just to show you, like, that's how they did in the exhibition space, these posters. And they were really nice. And a lot of our own partners in that work, I think that made me the happiest, is that people who were at the first opening and the second opening told us the